What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Phaithful Phanatics Show. We are live here on DSM-Media's Philadelphia YouTube and Twitter channels. Hope everybody had a fun and exciting, maybe relaxing Memorial Day weekend. We're back here on a Wednesday morning. Happy hump day to you, Scotty. The Phillies, they stink again. No, I'm just kidding. We'll get into that, everybody's overreactions, and why I think it's actually a good time for this little 4 or 5 game slump for the Phillies to come, and why they'll be okay. The Sixers continue to be rumored to every free agent, every possible superstar trade coming up in this upcoming offseason. Jimmy Butler, should they trade for him and give him a max extension? Why it could possibly be a bad idea. We'll get into all that and more, man, as we get on with this Wednesday morning. But my man, like I said, happy hump day and welcome back.
Happy hump day, man. Good afternoon. We're approaching noon here. So good afternoon to everybody out there today. But yeah, man, you hit the nail on the head. Hopefully everybody had a great weekend. I had a pretty chill weekend, I would say. I was off work all last week too, so I was kind of on like a little vacation
An extended
as well.
Break.
It was nice. It was nice to kind of gather myself and get loaded up for the summer here. So happy hump day, man. We got a little bit of a Philly slump to get into. It's only right after we, start talking and glazing them up last week. But maybe that's what you're getting at. Maybe it's time to, give them a little more motivation and have them go through the gutter a little bit here.
Yeah.
To just remind them of what things can look like if you're not locked in at all times. So
correct.
We'll obviously get into that. Jimmy Butler's it's an interesting deal, man. 35 years old. They're talking about trading 3 first-round draft picks for this man. I don't know how I feel about it. I'm going to change as we go through the show. I'll probably have a different idea by the time we talk about it. So
it's going to be interesting, man.
Sixers going to be a wild off season for the Sixers.
It would just be like the icing on top of this whole Joel Embiid era of Sixers basketball and how just
nutty.
Just problem after problem. Basically, listen, we could start with the Jimmy Butler news if we want to.
Let's talk about it, man.
Where I'm at with this, man. You're 5 years too late. Like that's kind of where I'm at. Like not only like just the optics of it. Like you and I get it. It's Daryl Morey back then. It wasn't like so. It's different people in charge and different decision makers. But you opted not to bring Jimmy Butler back in order to keep Brett Brown as a head coach for one more year, in order to keep Ben Simmons on your roster, in order to bring back Tobias Harris. And now 5 years later, you want to trade additional assets for him and then max him out. Listen, I am all for a Jimmy Butler sign and trade. I'm all for bringing Jimmy Butler back, even at 35 years old, even with some injury concern. You cannot max him out. Like, Scotty, man, am I missing something? And maybe people just view, I get it, Jimmy's been to finals with the Heat and one guy, blah, blah, blah. All the Paul George talk is age and injuries. And Paul George has played more and is younger than Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
But people are all on board with giving Jimmy Butler a 4 or 5 year max extension, whatever it would be. Yeah. But they don't want to sign Paul George, who we would not have to trade assets for.
Yeah. And can I add in? I mean, I'm not like 100% saying that Paul George is by all means the better fit.
No.
He's a much better floor spacing shooter. He's a much better spot up shooter from the 3-point line. He is a better 3-point shooter. He shoots more 3-pointers, right?
40%.
So it is all very interesting when you think about Jimmy Butler versus Paul George. I'm with you though. Like at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, like all history aside with this guy and the Sixers organization, you look at what Jimmy Butler has done the last 2 seasons. And the reason you have to look at the last 2 is because he didn't play in the postseason. He was injured. But in 23-24 regular season, he averaged about 21 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 50% from the field, 41% from the 3-point line, 86% from the free throw line. He played 60 games. The postseason before that obviously took the Heat to the finals against the Denver Nuggets. 22 games played in that postseason, 27 points per game, 6.5 rebounds per game, 6 assists per game, 2 steals per game, 47%, 36%, 81% across the board there. So when you look at it from that standpoint, the viewpoint, take away the other options as well, right? Jimmy Butler added to the Sixers. You give up draft compensation, whatever that may look like. Maybe you have to throw in like a Paul Reed or a Ricky Council or something to make things work. I have no idea. So when you look at it from that standpoint, it's like, duh, yeah, like, okay, like I would do it
1000%.
At the end of the day. Like if I come out of this offseason with Jimmy Butler, Joel Embiid, and Tyrese Maxey on my roster, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to feel successful in the offseason.
Agreed.
But the other side of that is exactly what you said. Jimmy Butler will be 35 years old by the time this next season starts. He's going to be 39 by the time that extension, 39 to 40 years old by the time that extension would finally be over, right? So there is, the other side of everything. But I think when you throw in the Paul George aspect and the fact that he's simply a free agent, he's a free agent. You don't have to give up anything for him. You just have to pay him money. If you're paying them the same amount of money, I just think Paul George is the more ideal target. And maybe that's the case for the Sixers too, right? Like this rumor has come out, but there's been a ton of them. Maybe Jimmy Butler is next on the target list after Paul George. That's what it would be for me, at least.
Absolutely. No, I agree wholeheartedly. Look, the addition of Jimmy Butler is not the issue at all. If the Sixers go into next season, like with that 3, like you mentioned, I'm ecstatic as a fan. I think they have a legitimate chance to come out of the Eastern Conference with those 3 and additional role players around them with the money they'll have available. That's not the point of the rumor, right? For people out there. There's 2 points to it. A, it's a major, major, major organizational fuck up. If that's the direction you go. It's not about trading for him. It's not about giving him a little bit more money. We're talking max. The same organization refused to give this dude a max in his prime. Wasted 4 or 5 more years of Joel Embiid's prime, and now at age 35 are willing to go back and give him that money. That's part 1. Part 2 is the other guy available. If you want to argue who's the better player right now, who's more of a winner, who's more clutch in the postseason, we can have those conversations. That's fair. I also think fit, to your point, is a conversation we need to have. This isn't Jimmy Butler as the B to Joel Embiid like it was a couple years ago, right? I know we had Ben, but what was Ben? Defense and facilitating in that
the glue guy.
You have Tyrese Maxey. So what does mid-range Jimmy Butler look like between? I don't know. To your point, I know what 41.5% from 3-point Paul George could look like. So I'm not against them. They are my 1A and 1B targets for the offseason. I'm happy with both. I just look at the rumor and look how happy fans are on social media that they're engaging with Miami possibly and want to bring Jimmy back. But those same people are so anti the Paul George rumors. And that's where I find a disconnect.
I think you also have to ask yourself, when you look at Jimmy Butler's game and you look at Paul George's game, and this is an honest question to you because I lean Paul George, but I'm not 100% sure. But who ages more gracefully? Which one of these guys' games ages more gracefully?
I know.
I say Paul George because he does shoot more 3-pointers. And I just feel like when you are out, spacing the floor and you have Joel Embiid, you have Maxey on your team, you're just there to space the floor and be a 3-point shooter if need be, at the very least, right? If he could be that late into his career, I think that's going to be more valuable. Whereas we know what Jimmy Butler is. Yes, he does have the mid-range. He can even turn on the 3-point shot. He's shown it in the playoffs. I'm not taking that away from him. But he is a guy that is primarily known as a hustle, defensive, aggressive type of player, willing to get in the passing lanes, willing to handle the ball, play make for his team, get in the paint, get in the mid-range, right? it's a lot different than the way I view Paul George. Now, not to say that Paul George doesn't rely on his athleticism, because he does. But I think as Paul George has grown throughout his career due to his own injuries, he's adjusted his game a little bit to age a little bit more gracefully and take a little bit more off of his legs and off of his body. So,
and look, man, I think to add on to what you're saying is timing, right? Like, if you're a fellow Sixers fan or just an NBA fan or whatever, why are we picking this year, this offseason, as the mark of where we put Jimmy Butler compared to Paul George in terms of age and injuries and money and all that? Paul George played 74 games and then the postseason this year.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler played 60 and missed the postseason.
Yeah.
Both played 34 minutes per game. Jimmy Butler averaged 20. Paul George averaged just about 22 and a half. 47 to 49% from the floor. Both 41.5% from three. Paul George shoots way more than him. Both 5 rebounds. Both a steal and a half. Jimmy Butler averages assists and a half more than Paul George. Why? Like, what is the pedestal, man? Is that all it is? Is it winning? But I'll ask you this. Don't we all just talk about Heat culture and Eric Spoelstra and roster construction? So, like, what is it? Is it Jimmy Butler's just the ultimate winner? Or was he a cog in a machine?
Right. I do feel you, man. And I think what we can simply say here, just without, looking too crazy, I guess, but Paul George or Jimmy Butler in this team with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey is a great thing. Like, it's a win in the offseason.
I agree. But I don't think, here's the funny part, man, before we move on. I don't think many people will agree with us. I don't think they view Paul George as a great thing. And that's where I get confused.
I just think, like, if you could potentially keep your draft pick this year, and we've talked about this before. Yeah. I'm not the connoisseur of keeping draft picks and draft capital. I will trade it for a championship in a heartbeat. But when you look at the fact that you could sign Paul George, if you're going to give a max contract, it's going somewhere. So let it go to Paul George, whatever. You still have this first-round pick that you can go and add maybe a role player. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's a dumb pick. Maybe the pick doesn't work out. Maybe that player's not as good as what you thought. But at least you have a chance that maybe you get a Terry Eason, a Tyree Eason from Houston, right, in the later rounds. There's different examples thrown out there. A Jerry McCain, right, from Duke, a shooter. Devin Carter I've seen thrown around. There's a bunch of different names out there that they could end up with at that mid-round pick in the first round. So it's like, just looking at it from that standpoint, and it's not just that first-round pick.
And not even that.
If you don't want that pick, you can sign Paul George and then trade that pick with other picks for another player.
To get another, like, I don't want to use the word role player, but like an additional fit piece. That's what I was just going to say to you. That's what I would say to people. Would you prefer Jimmy Butler trade max extension, or would you prefer Paul George sign max extension and then trade for another solid third to fourth option, right? Would be a third or second option on most teams. He's a third or fourth option on our team most nights. So, like, that's where I'm at. So
I did see Mark Henry on X, on Twitter, and he said, what if the Sixers strike out?
I saw that, on everything.
On PG, on LeBron, on everything, basically, right? And I guess, my question would be, like, what do the Sixers do if that happens, right? Like, Zach LaVine, I wanted to ask you about this because we talked about Zach LaVine mid-season. It was like, before he got injured, we were like, yeah, let's do it. Gets injured. He has this season. He has kind of a down start to the season, and we moved off of him. Would that be a consolation prize?
Yeah, I mean,
or are you against that? Or would you just rather not?
I don't think you can just, snuff your nose at it, right? I don't think you can just dismiss it. If you basically, and shout out to Mark, his tweet was that they missed out on the big pieces, right? Jimmy, Paul George, LeBron, for God's sake, a Donovan Mitchell trade, stuff like that. And then he listed, like, basically top tier role players, right? We're behind them, but DeJounte Murray was another name that was in that mix. And yeah, man, like I just think when you have a core of Maxey, when you have Maxey and Embiid as the cornerstones, and let's say you can bring back a Kelly Oubre Jr., maybe you bring back a Nico Batum if he doesn't retire, or one more piece, right? Buddy Hield. You bring back one more piece from this team with Kelly, and then you go out and you added a DeJounte Murray, Malik Monk, and one other piece.
Yeah.
And a backup big, right? Like Andre Drummond, let's just say. Like, I'm not. How am I supposed to be mad at that team? The issue is you are kind of rolling the dice on needing Joel to be 100% and needing this to go your way. Whereas if you get the third option, you don't necessarily need all that in the regular season.
And if the Sixers strike out on all of those players, where are those players ending up? Are they ending up on other Eastern Conference contenders like New York, like Indiana, right? Like these different teams.
That was the other piece. If OG and Pascal stay with Indiana and New York, those are the other two options as well.
Yeah, so it's interesting, man. It's interesting to think about if that happens. But I just have a feeling, man, that we're gonna have a little bit. I don't want to say our choosing of the crop, but I mean, when you look at like if I'm Paul George. How do you not want to play next to Embiid and Maxey? Like, as far as like maximizing what your capabilities are on the basketball court, like even compared to like Kawhi and James Harden.
Well, I would also throw out like if you're Paul George, what's the one thing you're missing at the moment, right? Like like basically, if you're getting the money, you're getting the money. So that's one part. Yeah. And then what are you missing in your career?
A ring.
You're missing one of these, right? Well. Is going through the West your best option right now?
Right.
Like you traded for James Harden. Evidently, James is frustrated again and wants Shane. This happens. Kawhi's never healthy. No one's ever healthy over there. They have all these issues. Like you're looking at a West. OKC's only going to get stronger. Minnesota's only going to get stronger. You're seeing what Dallas is doing right now. Denver's going to bounce back. I mean, you have Phoenix with their roster. Maybe it works out if LeBron stays out. Is being
Minnesota
in the
might add
somebody right
next
is
to
being in the Western Conference
finally.
Your best possible outcome, or do you look out east and go, okay, I see what Boston's doing,
right?
But that's
right.
Is that it? Right? I know Giannis will be healthy next year and stuff like that, but like that's somewhere you would look as well. Like let me go here, pair up with these two monsters, and try to come out of the East.
And you look at the East, you look around. I mean, New York's not going to have the cap space if they bring OG back, right? Indiana's not going to have the cap space if they bring Pascal back.
If Miami trades Jimmy,
small market, right?
Like if Miami trades Jimmy, what's the point of going to Miami?
Right. So and then also, I mean, when you look at it from the standpoint of like not going to a Western Conference team, like. Let's just say like an example like the Mavericks and be the third wheel to Kyrie and Luka, or go to OKC behind SGA. Maybe OKC's not a good example. I think that would actually be a decent move for his his career trajectory or whatever you want to call it. But I just don't think he'll do that. It's too small of a market. He's already been there. But when you think about going to a new team and not wanting to be like Kevin Durant, right? Going to a front runner, and that's something that the Sixers are not. They have two great cornerstones in Embiid and Maxey. I mean, coach and Nick Nurse, but they are not by any means a front runner.
Think about that. You come to Philly, you come to that market and get them, and even just over the hump of the second. If you got Philly to an NBA Finals next year, don't get me wrong, it's gonna fucking hurt. But like, we can't get out of the second and first round. You get us to a finals appearance and go 6-7 games. You know what I mean? Like it just changes.
I mean, dude, if you get us to the conference finals against Boston, I mean, I know it's such a loser mentality, but like I would thank God for it. Like
I know.
I mean, that's how desperate I am to see the Sixers win and advance and get further, man.
Right. To your point, like we do have Embiid, we do have Maxey. Yeah. But no one's going to view a move from a star to Philly as a front-running type of move, like you mentioned, with the question marks that would come around chasing a ring. you can't get you couldn't beat the Knicks this year in the first round.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
so,
Exactly. Like you can't sit here and say like Oubre's a great fit. Like,
yeah.
no, man. Like that's not what we could do here.
Yeah.
But I will say, just before we move off of the NBA here, the one reason I've been like going back and forth in my head, and like it's so easy to root for Dallas if they advance and play the Celtics in the finals, man. But there is that part of me that just fucking hates Dallas. I mean, obviously, like the Cowboys side of things, but there's that part of me that just does not.
Can I tell you something, man?
City like thrive.
Yeah. Can I tell you something? I'm rooting for it, and let me explain why.
Yeah.
It would just be the ultimate ironic slap in the face.
Yeah.
If the Texas Rangers won a World Series last year, the Dallas Mavericks win an NBA championship this year, the Dallas Stars are in the Western Conference Finals in hockey.
That is so fair.
These teams to compete for titles or win a title,
and they're not our rival.
This team even like gets out of our first round. No, I don't. Yeah,
right.
What do I care about the Dallas Stars for? You know what I mean? So like for these teams to go and compete and possibly win chips before that.
Cockroach.
Rat infested organization can get one. I think it would just be the ultimate, like, just slap in the face, would it not? Like,
yeah, no, Michael
Parsons sitting courtside at the Mavs game.
Oh my god!
And they're raising a banner or
front runner, bro. Oh my goodness, Michael Parsons, man. But no, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Yeah. And the main thing with Boston, I will say, Jason Tatum, even as a Duke fan, he gets on my nerves, but it's not him. It's not Jaylen Brown, right? Like Jaylen Brown, I actually like Jaylen Brown off the court. I just don't like him on Boston Celtics. It's not the Derek Whites. It's not Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday's humble. It's that motherfucker Al Horford, dog. I cannot have him get a ring. I don't care if he leaves the team next year and they win the NBA championship.
Yeah.
I cannot have Al Horford get a ring. It cannot happen, bro. It can't. It can't. It'll make me throw up seeing him celebrate. Watching him hit 7 threes against Indiana in whatever fucking game that was makes me want to go visit the toilet. That's what it makes me feel, man.
It is.
I cannot have it.
It's a disgusting sight for real, but but yeah, no, I agree with you. But and it's also like why like I'm kind of glad Dallas is doing what they're doing, only because like I feel that way about Al Horford more, especially because, you know, he came here and basically was like an undercover spy while he was here and was horrible, and then goes back and wins. Like that would hurt, and it's Boston. But I can't see Rudy Gobert and Cat lift the trophy before Joel, man. I can't. So I love Ant. I do. Man. I love Ant-Man, but I can't see those two big goons.
I feel you.
Raise a banner before Joel. The last thing, this is such an off-topic thing. I don't know why it made me think of it, but when I mentioned Micah Parsons and you were like, "Oh, that front runner," you watch him on like clips and podcasts and interviews and stuff like that, like, and you see him going courtside wearing like all these different NBA teams jerseys, and he's a fan. He's this, he's that. He is the most gigantic kid I've ever seen. Does he not come across as like very like immature and like like have you ever even heard him like talk shit like when he like goes back and forth with like CJ Stroud? Like he's like a child. Like he talks like he's like a 19-year-old would talk shit. Like
you know who he kind
he's
of
corny. He's extremely corny.
He's corny, man. He reminds me of like Draymond Green, like just a younger version. Just corny and like I don't know. I feel you. It's like speaking of podcasts, are those not, or is that not the most ridiculous out of pocket statement to ever be made? Yeah. We could talk about Draymond too. With Micah Parsons, man, I do feel you. It's like the whole like him watching the NFL draft and like reacting to other teams drafting players like the Eagles. It's like, dude, why are you like putting this out in the air? Like, it's just weird. You know what I mean? It's like weird in this social media era. But Draymond Green, man. Why? No wonder TNT's getting cut off, because why the hell are you bringing this guy on the set for every game, man? Like it's gross. And like It even makes me start to look at like Chuck like a little different too, because I'm like, man, is like Chuck just Draymond but older? But the Draymond at least has rings, I guess. But
Yeah, that's
nonetheless,
true.
that's the first thing. But the second thing, the
But
comment
Chuck was
about
a better player.
he was, yes. Let's be fair here. But with
What was the second thing?
Draymond, man, those comments on the
Yeah.
podcast, bro, like
Yeah.
how insulting to like just like the average American.
It was the one, wasn't it the one he was on with Shaq too? That was all the
Yeah.
same pod with all those
Yeah.
clips that came out. Look,
Yeah.
I didn't hear Shaq's I didn't hear
didn't
Shaq's
either.
comment back to it, so I don't know
I'm
if he like
curious.
agreed or was like blah blah blah. Because like Shaq doesn't seem like the type to do that. Like in the same podcast clip, they argued like Shaq's Lakers versus Draymond's Warriors, and like
Yeah.
Shaq wasn't backing down. So it's like he won't take shit, but like it is the most ridiculous comment I'm being serious, that I've probably ever heard from a professional athlete.
Yeah.
Okay, so my dude, it's basically, if anyone hasn't seen it, Draymond Green said that the NBA does not set their players up to be wealthy, basically, after they retire. And in large part, he mentioned first of all, he mentioned paying taxes. What? Scotty, do you pay taxes?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Secondly, he mentioned the fine system. Brother. You're fined because of your actions. Like this dude, like
they don't just fine you for like showing up to the game like late, like showing up.
Not to mention Draymond Green. I saw the clip earlier on Barstool. I forget how much I think they said Draymond's made $179 million up to this point in his career, just playing basketball.
Just basketball too.
Not like broadcasting, not sponsorships, average, nothing, just basketball. His total amounts of fines throughout his career comes out to $2 million.
Which is a lot, but like not compared to what
$177 million left just from basketball.
But how dumb do you? I mean, $2 million in fines. Like,
I don't want to get down this whole rabbit hole with him. I don't want to go down this whole rabbit hole with him. But I was going to bring this up to you because he made other comments, like when Jamal Murray threw the heating pad on the floor and didn't get suspended. You got fined. Now Jamal Murray should have been suspended. Like that was. A lot of players would have been suspended, but Draymond came out and someone like jokingly asked him on a pod, like, if that was Draymond Green, what happens? He's like, I'm suspended for the rest of the series, blah, blah, blah. And he always talks about how he's reffed by different rules. My guy, that's because you are a repeat offender.
You pay $2
How
million
dumb are you?
In fines.
If you steal a car one time, maybe you get 2 years. If you steal a car 8 times, you might go away for 20 or so. I don't like when you're a repeat offender and you're constantly doing dirty shit, like stepping on a dude's chest, like punching a dude in the face, like knocking out your teammate in practice, like chokeholding another player. You are going to be judged differently than someone who did something for the first time.
It's just it's a total lack of awareness, man. Like he has a lack of like self-awareness, awareness overall. Like for a guy that seems to have pretty good awareness on the court, right? Like he's a pretty
he has pretty good awareness when he's talking about others as well, right? When there's a microphone in his mouth, he can
like I just
see others' actions pretty well.
I don't get how you can sit here and like want like the casual viewer to like enjoy your show while you tell us that the $100,000 fine that you get and how your mom had to work 3 years for that. It's like, all right, like I get it. It's not like other people didn't grow up like that as well, but like $100,000 is not the same scale as it was to your mom compared to an NBA athlete. Like, are you that dumb?
Correct.
Like literally like dumb. Like that's dumb. That's dumb to say. And that's nothing to do with what your mom made when you were growing up, dude. Like what?
When you see his pod, like, do you not like get the sense that like the way he speaks on topics, like he thinks like he's smarter than everybody?
Yeah,
do you not get that sense, like the way he'll describe situations and etc. And it's like he's like laying it out for you, like at a base level. And it's like, bro, you're the one with no self-evaluation. Like So
it's insane.
it was just a funny top. I mean, I saw a couple different podcasts talk about it, so I was like, oh, we can chat. We can chat about it. But it was a hell of a statement. Hey, we have a full summer of just baseball and some rumors, and maybe Draymond will give us a couple more clips to talk about. But he probably will, and he'll probably be suspended again next year for doing some stupid shit he shouldn't do.
Maybe,
but anyway,
Klay Thompson will be the consolation prize.
Yeah. But anyway, let's talk about the crux of the show, and that's that the Phillies stink.
No. Yes, sir.
Phillies are now get ready for this, everybody. 38-18. They have lost 3 in a row. They've lost 4 of the last 5. They lost the series in Colorado to the Rockies, and now they've lost the first 2 against the Giants, with that third game coming in about 3.5 hours. But look, the reason I started the show by saying it's kind of a good thing that this is happening right now. And I mean that to the fan base, and it's something you and I have discussed. Just from being a fan and doing this and getting on and analyzing, like, why I think it's a good thing that's happening right now is you're allowed to be frustrated. You're allowed to be disappointed and upset with how they're playing right now. Yeah, they should not lose a 1-0 extra innings game with Zach Wheeler on the mound when he gives you 7 scoreless against Spencer Howard and a bullpen game from the San Francisco Giants. Right? Like, that shouldn't happen. Like, you would think Ranger Suarez starts the season 9-0. You wouldn't think he'd give up 5 runs in the second inning to the Rockies. You're allowed to be frustrated in the moment. You're allowed to analyze things in the moment. The reason I'm saying it's good it's happening right now is because you still have to understand that you need to take a deep breath, and this team is still the best team in baseball, and they're going to be okay. That's why I'm saying it's a good thing, because we get so back and forth with inconsistent play in the regular season. It's a 162 game season. Guys, I got news for you. The first place Los Angeles Dodgers, the big bad Dodgers, they've already gone through a 5-game losing streak this year. This happens to every team around the league. Yes, and they lose to bad teams like the Phillies are doing right now. It's okay. It's why it was important for them to get out to a fast start. Now, they exceeded that fast start with crazy, crazy early play, but that's the leverage they built themselves. The Atlanta Braves only caught up 2 games over the course of this bad stretch.
And I think the big thing, when you look at the way the schedule's laid out and where these losses are coming, I mean, if you think it's weird to stay up for a 9:40 baseball game, then how do you think the players feel when they're going to? It's not an excuse. It's not. Right. You still expect them to win these games against the Giants and the Rockies, of course, but you're not going to win every game this season. In this situation, when you're on a West Coast trip, you have 6 straight games on the West Coast. You might go through a rough patch, especially when it comes to rhythm and in a game that is focused around rhythm and consistency. So while I, would like to see them obviously handle this road trip a little bit better, hopefully finish with a win today around 3:40 today. It would be great to finish it off with that, given you've gone 1-4 so far. But nonetheless, I do think when you look at the grand scheme here, there's still 5 games up on the Braves. There's still a half game up on the rest of the MLB for the best record in the league. They're still in a great spot, and that's what that great start did for them. But I would say let's hope for a quick turnaround. We don't want this to drag on too long, obviously. I guess what I would ask you, where would you put your concern or whatever you want to call it, 1 through 10? Where
what are the explanations for the 4 losses?
Exactly.
Well, the bats left Philadelphia and have seemingly forgotten how to hit here and there, right?
Absolutely.
Now, granted, they had a 6-run top of the 9th inning to win one of those games, to win the only game they won in Colorado, which was crazy to see. But outside of that explosion, they've been pretty bad right now. Granted, they put up 4 the other day on Memorial Day against the Dodgers, but Taijuan Walker's been bad. So I would say it's just been a combination of everything. Ranger Suarez finally had a bad start. He gave up 5 runs. Taijuan Walker was bad. Aaron Nola wasn't great, if I can remember, in that comeback game. So the pitching hasn't been great, and the bats haven't been great. They're also still injured, everybody. I don't know. Here's where I'm trying to get through to people, right? we keep seeing these lineups. And don't get me wrong, they've been winning a lot of baseball games with these lineups. They've been great since our shortstop got hurt. But the reason you have lineups of 6 through 9 being Edmundo Sosa, Cody Clemens, Christian Pache, Johan Rojas, and a throw in a bat at the 4 hole of Nick Castellanos is because you're injured in other areas. Last night, no Trey Turner, no Alec Boehm. Well, I mean, what do you think the back end of your lineup's going to look like? And it's not an excuse. It's not an excuse to get shut out in 10 innings against a bullpen game, okay? I'm just saying they're not 100% healthy. This is not the lineup you're going to get when things matter. So yeah, I think it's just weathering the storm and getting through this. You got one more game today, like you said, and then you come home for 6, and then you go to London for that Mets series for 2 games. So you're home for 6 more before you travel again. I think they'll bounce back, man, but relax. Yeah, and this is the point. Just keep your heads right, because that's what people are going to hop on board and say, right? When the Phillies were beating the easy schedule, they haven't played anybody. We were telling everybody it's what you're supposed to do. Well, now that they're losing the bad teams, now they can't even beat those teams. I got newsflash. Those same people. The Atlanta Braves, I believe, lost 2 to the Washington Nationals. I could be wrong, but I know they only picked up 2 games on us over this stretch. Let me see here. Sorry. Not to add on to you. No, they lost. So they lost 1. Oh, they lost 2 out of 3 to the Pirates. That's what it was. Then they lost 1 out of 2 so far to the Washington Nationals. So newsflash, the Atlanta Braves are still losing to bad teams.
Maybe everybody's just overreacting because they're having to stay up late and watch these L's.
Yeah,
but I'm with you, man.
I will say, just to add on 2 things that I'm actually, a little concerned about at this point that I need fixed. Taijuan Walker cannot be in this rotation, and I already know he's not going anywhere. They paid him too much money. For some reason, they respect him as some sort of innings eater, and they'll let him go out there and throw 95 pitches every night, no matter how he's stealing. Which is sad to see, man. Like that Memorial Day game, he put them in a 3-0 hole immediately. Basically, they came back and took a 4-3 lead. That right there should have been the end of Taijuan Walker's day in the 5th inning, and instead, Rob Thompson decides he doesn't want to kind of shatter his bullpen today, so he'll eat this game. Let's Walker go out and give up 7 runs, dude. Like that kind of stuff does frustrate me, especially the way that Spencer Turnbull was pitching. Now every 5th day we're getting Taijuan Walker, where you just know 4 or 5 runs is coming from Taijuan Walker in 5 or 6 innings. So it's frustrating. The other thing, I don't know what fixes Nick Castellanos. I really don't, man. He's been a Philly for almost 2.5 years. He's gone through 2 ridiculous hot streaks, being the first half of last year where he made an all-star team, and then the playoffs last year. Outside of that, Nick Castellanos has been a terrible at-bat for the Phillies. Outside of those 2, and I love the dude. Like I want Nick Castellanos to be good so bad for this team. I love the swagger. I love the cockiness when things are going well. When he's pimping 100 mile per hour fastballs off Spencer Strider to the upper deck practically in the NLDS. I love it. But if we want to tell the truth, outside of him making an all-star team in the first half of last year and the 8-game stretch he had in the playoffs last season, Castellanos has probably been a sub 240 hitter for the Phillies. And there's no confidence in him, Scotty. There's really not, man. He comes up to bat, runners on, leading off an inning. Last night, Bryce walked in the top of the 1st, against the opener. Nick draws a 3-2 count. Scotty swung at something that hit the ground. Like, you take that walk, it's 1st and 2nd. There's some pressure applied to the bullpen starter in the 1st inning. You swung at something that hit the dirt, dude. So he's a very frustrating watch. So those would be my 2 legitimate complaints right now. Would be Nick Castellanos. I don't know what to do with him, and Taijuan Walker should not be in this rotation, but he's going to be, and Casty's going to like.
And I think the thing with Casty is it's just he can never step up when everybody else is struggling, right? Like
Yep.
it's always like part of like them going nuclear.
Yep.
He'll go and he'll add to it, but he's never the guy that can just get them a
Correct.
hit or get them a home run when they need it, man, in the big moment. And yeah, I see exactly what you mean. And the problem is they rely on him as that guy. And
Well, right, because Bowen misses the game last night and he
Yeah.
gets promoted to hitting cleanup.
Yeah.
That, like, I don't
Yeah.
know, man. I get it. JT's locked in the 2-hole. How many guys are you going to move around? Nick Castellanos is not the guy you can move to cleanup, man.
And is
So,
Bone is he just getting rest? Is that
yeah,
because
so
of the
he was.
errors
I
the
think
previous night? Or
Topper said something about like just nicks and bruises. They gave him the night off, and he should be playing today. So
fair enough.
it's not a problem with him. I will say this to wrap up the show. The only thing, it's not a concern, but you're getting a glimpse of kind of what happened when they left Philly after game 2 of the NLCS last year and kind of started the struggle is the part that this team needs to kind of figure out somehow. Someone's got to light the fire is they can't all struggle at once.
Yeah.
And they do. They
The
all struggle. Like there's not, there's
games.
not a night. There's no parts of the season where like, okay, Schwarber and Costi and Bryce are in a slump, but JT, Bohm, Stott, and Marsh are picking up the slack and winning games. Like last night, okay, JT hit a double.
Schwarber at least 2 for 4 the last 2 games. Like, but everybody else, to your point, I mean. What last night it was JT, Bryce, Stott, Casty, Marsh 2 for 20 combined last night, and then the game before that JT, Bryce, Bohm, Castellanos 1 for 14 altogether. So it's just too many guys going cold all at once, man. And I would love to see that change today. So how are you feeling about today's matchup with the Giants? You got Christopher Sanchez on the mound. How confident are we feeling today?
I mean, I'm not going to lie and say I'm extremely confident because there is always something that comes with a Chris Sanchez start. Like there are people that have blind faith in him. I think he's a good back end rotation guy, but when his part of the rotation is called, it's a little worrisome. And then with the lineup, I just what's going to snap them out of this little slump that they're in. Right. It's going to take something, an early rally and an early inning, getting the first 2 guys on, right? Can maybe Schwarber walk and JT hit a single in the 3rd inning. And that's how we get an inning started. And they don't look back from there. They don't take their foot off the gas, but they need someone or something to jumpstart this offensive firepower again. Sanchez, to me, Christopher Sanchez giving you like 5 1/3 to 6 innings with 3 runs is fine. That's fine for me. And then the bullpen has to find a way to shut down. Preferably, you'd like him to limit under 3, but he does scare me a little bit. But the frustrating part, I would say, with how you've lost the first 2 games is this Giants lineup is nothing to be scared of. Like there's I mean, come on, man. Matt Chapman can't really hit a baseball anymore. Okay, like. Jorge Soler's been out and he's one of their best power hitters. Mike Yastrzemski, Luis Matos hit there's nothing going on in that lineup. So
he's been pretty solid his last 4 starts, it looks like here. So he's
Sanchez?
gone 5.1 against the Rockies. He had 7 hits, 1 ER. They ended up losing that one. The other 3 were wins. So 7 against Washington, 5.2.
Yeah, that was a great start.
And then 7 against Toronto as well. With only the Mets, he gave up 3 runs against. He gave up 2 against Washington and 1 against the Blue Jays. So
it's
been decent.
Buster Posey's not walking through that door anymore. Okay. All right. So now, before we wrap up, Marshall Lynch, I got you. He said,
"Is this a rumor?"
He said this. Yeah, he said, if the Raptors make Jakob Poeltl available, would you trade pick number 16 for him? Would you?
Let me look up Poto's numbers here.
I don't know how I feel about that.
I don't know if it's like the Duke fan in me, man. I'm like falling in love with this 16th pick.
Who you want? Proctor?
No. McCain, man. Just floor spacer. But it highly depends on what we do in the rest of the.
Okay, so the Raptors don't have a first round pick, so maybe they want to jump in. Look, and obviously it would fill a need that this team would need regardless in free agency, right? You need a backup center.
11 points, 8.6 rebounds per game. How many minutes was he playing? So, yeah, I mean, for a backup center, man, I mean, a first round pick. I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to gauge like the value of a first round pick in today's NBA.
Right. The question becomes, right? Like so on the canvas, at first I wanted to say no, right? But to that last comment, what's more valuable to you attempting to make a playoff run this upcoming season? A possible guard or forward rookie coming off the bench and hope it works out, or hopefully knowing you solidified the backup 5 position behind Joel?
Yeah.
Like, Jakob Poeltl would be a role player for the Sixers. We don't know if pick number 16 would be a role player for the Sixers. But like you said, it also doesn't feel like Jakob Poeltl is worth a top 16 pick in the NBA draft.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird, right? Like I don't know. It's like measuring potential over what you need right now, which I guess when you put it like that, it's always going to be about right now. So yeah, I would say so. I mean, how many years does he have on his contract? Did we get him for like at least 2 years? I would like if it's like 2 years, I would probably do it because you get your backup center locked in for what you would imagine these next 2 years is going to be the final couple years of Joel's prime. So, if you can kind of match Poeltl with Joel, I would probably do that.
Now this, I'm in.
Keldon Johnson. See, in what world, though? I don't know. Maybe I'm off on the value of these guys, but in what world is Keldon Johnson the same value as Jakob Poeltl or even Bogdanovich or Hunter in Atlanta, like wings? Floor spacing wings, Hunter a 3 and D to be more specific.
Maybe it's not just the 16th. Maybe for Poeltl, it's just the 16th. Maybe for them, it's the 16th and second or 2 future seconds or whatever it would be. So I'm not sure.
Because I mean, you start talking to if you start talking to San Antonio, and we can give Vassell in this conversation. That's when you'll have me sold, man. I would give up that first pick easily. I would maybe even give up more for Devin Vassell, man. He seems like one of the more perfect fits. But Keldon Johnson would be solid, man. About 16 points per game last year, 6 rebounds, about 3 assists. What's he shoot from the 3? About 35%. It's not great, but not the worst. These are all great secondary type of moves, secondary third level type of moves. After you get your big fish.
Your guy. Right.
I would just I feel like we need to everyone fish first.
I think that's what everyone needs to kind of grasp is like, 2 things, right? We kind of went the route of Tyrese and Joel and a lot of secondary guys, right? And I did really like the roster. It obviously didn't pan out. Joel wasn't healthy. I get it. But clearly, even if Joel's healthy, even if we got by the Knicks, is this roster good enough to compete? Right. The Maxey, Embiid, and a bunch of role players.
Right.
To me, you need the guy that can be a 1 on any given night, but is your third option and can average 20 points a game about. And then you add in the backup secondary pieces to those 3. Someone's getting that max contract. People know that, right? Like,
just look at the Boston Celtics and what they've done this postseason. Right. Now, mind you, it hasn't been the greatest competition walking on God's green earth, but it's been competition, right? And it's been what's in front of them. And what I've seen from the Celtics, which take all of the hating on Jason Tatum being a 1 or that conversation away. Drew Holiday dropped 28 in one game in that series against Indiana, dropped 25 plus in 2 games. Devin, why am I losing his name? Derek White, not Devin White. Derek White. It's a game-winning 3 for them in Game 4. Jaylen Brown wins Conference Player of the Series, right? Then you have Jason Tatum, who was averaging a 25, 27 points per game with 10 plus rebounds, and then you think about Al Horford, who can give you 7 threes in one game. Maybe it's just 3 or 4 threes in the next. And then you talk about Kristaps Porzingis, who's not even in the lineup.
Yeah,
And
that's
you
the biggest
really
thing for
think
me,
about
man.
it. Like, how the hell are you beating that team?
Yeah, the biggest thing for me is like Porzingis felt like that difference-making piece for them all season long, and he hasn't even been available, and they're just continuing 5 games, 5
They're throwing
games,
Luke
sweet.
Cornett on the floor and
Yeah,
making him look useful. Like,
yeah,
Peyton Pritchard's out there contributing. Like, it's
yep,
annoying as hell.
right, yep. Al Horford winding back the clock continuously year after year in the postseason.
Because
Like,
we could go after these role. There's nobody available that's as good as Derek White. Like, from a role player standpoint, he's like the best role player that does what he does, right? Like, it's annoying, man. It's annoying. All I can hope is that like Drew just gets old and Al Horford just gets
quickly,
old and they start to show it next year. But yeah, you need to start to focus on competing with Boston.
Yeah,
like that's the harsh truth, the harsh reality.
It really is, dude.
So
yeah, I'm all in. I
hell yeah. Hell yes. Get
all the way the fuck in.
Paul Reed off the team. You get a backup center in return. You get some great role players. If you get one of those guys, I would say.
You and I brought it up before, man. Gary Trent Jr. was a target I was looking at last year as well. If they could find a way to bring him in.
I think he's a restricted free agent this year. So
I forget, but
so I think that's
we
why
shall see, man. It's going to be. That's always like the light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to this another Sixers disappointing year, right?
If you could get Jakob Poeltl, Bruce Brown, or Gary Trent Jr. and then sign Paul George,
bring back Kelly Oubre Jr.,
maybe a Batum,
maybe
I don't know, maybe D-Melt or something like to back.
Well, this is why I said this is always the light at the end of the tunnel. This is the fun part because they can't hurt us yet.
Right.
We're envisioning positives and what can work. And then, they're going to see we're going to be refreshing Twitter every second of when free agency opens. And all of a sudden, boom, here comes this star and boom, here comes this trade. And they can't hurt me yet. So
we're going to get the tail end of Jimmy Butler's career. He's going to be injured.
Yeah.
That's our luck though. That's why I think in reality, you could see it and you could view it optimistically and say Jimmy Butler's going to come here and have his best year, whatever with Embiid and Maxey. But bad things always happen to the Sixers. That's just the truth.
The unfortunate part, and that's why we started with that conversation, was this would be self-inflicted. Like, this would not be, we missed out because of a dude on his prime. He finally wanted to come here. This was like, he was here. Yeah. He's right here. Like, Mikal Bridges, everybody was
trading for Mikal Bridges.
He was here, but,
you're going to trade, 4 first-round picks for Mikal Bridges when
we drafted him a few short years ago. Yeah. The fucking rocket sign, the brain power just behind this organization never ceases to amaze me.
Oh man,
it really doesn't. Like, honestly, bro. Like, what? Listen, God, I don't want them to hurt me yet, so I won't do it. But they have to be one of the worst ran organizations in professional sports. I mean that whole, like, in terms of like having an actual market. I'm not talking like a smaller market team or whatever. I'm talking like you're in one of the biggest markets, top 5 market probably. Just the shit we've had go on the last 8 years is unbelievable.
It's crazy.
Like,
it is
from the start of the process to Burnergate to say like every Ben Simmons,
James
debacle,
Harden.
Just everything. Like trading away Mikal Bridges for fucking Zaire Smith, who almost died from an allergy and can't play in the NBA anymore. Markelle Fultz gets picked number 1, forgets how to shoot a basketball. Everything, man. So I
just do me a favor. I'm gonna say this like every show we talk about the Sixers. Do not bring Tobias Harris back. Just do
Scotty, I mean this. Like I mean this, man. I might not watch the start of the season next year if they bring him back. Like, I might like boycott watching them. Not that it's going to do anything
until the Eagles are done. Like, for real. Like, I'm not watching that shit. Like, I refuse, man. I'm with you. I refuse to watch that. That's malpractice.
Yeah, I mean, there's no legitimate explanation or reason as to why you would give this dude a nickel to come back and play here. Like, here's the thing. Even if Daryl Morey and Nick Nurse and Tobias Harris have a very close-knit relationship, Daryl Morey and Nick Nurse, they have to be aware of the perception of Tobias Harris in the city, right?
There's no way.
So it is a legitimate impossibility for this to happen for me.
This right here. Literally.
Like, pay you to come see the Sixers? No, you're going to have to send me $100 to come see the Sixers play tonight. Parking
Don't send me no free tickets.
Drinks free. Like, you're paying me to come watch you tonight. So no.
That's a no. That cannot happen.
Yeah, that is a clear absolute no. But yeah, and that's not happening. But anyway, all right, let's go hope that the Phillies can pull out a win.
Yes, sir. Let's get
in a few short hours, man. But guys, we will be back Friday morning talking more Phillies, hopefully in a positive way. And whatever other rumors decide to come out between the Eagles and the Sixers from that point on. Maybe Draymond Green will drop another hard quote for us to come talk about. But
hey, we'll find out who I guess we could find out who the finals matchup is by Friday.
Yeah, they play tomorrow. Yeah, they play tomorrow night. Yeah. But so T-Wolves are like minus 190 on the money line. They might find a way to extend it. So we'll see.
That's interesting. Minus 190. They are at home.
I believe the spread's 4.5 at the moment. So I don't know which way I like, but
every game's been close. So I don't know. That's interesting. We'll have to come together to figure something out there.
Exactly. And Kyrie finally lost his first closeout game. So is he going to go and lose back-to-back closeout games? But yeah,
Marshawn Lynch, I will say, has been calling this since these series started. He has been saying that. So
Kyrie versus the Celtics. What a showdown at TD Garden it would be.
I saw they were chanting "fuck Kyrie" outside of Boston after they swept, or I don't know. Boston fans were chanting it somewhere after they swept the Pacers.
Yeah. Don't know. Dude, I'm sorry. I know we're about to wrap up, but did you see the clip of Kat crying after the foul call last night on Luka? Did you see it?
I did not. He was legitimately crying.
No, it was very close to tears coming out, bro. So he was straight up, right? And Luka bumped into him and got the call. And he heard the whistle, and it's just right, it's on Kat's face. And I forget what official called it, but he was calling him by his first name. So his name was Steven. He was like, Steven, no. He was legitimately almost.
Dude is the king of dumbass fouls, bro. I don't know how. Him and Jaren Jackson Jr., bro, two of a kind of just the dumbest fouls you can ever commit, especially in a playoff game when you know your team needs you, man. That wasn't the dumbest one. That wasn't the dumbest one. He had two very dumb ones in the first quarter. So yeah, I don't know. Kat's I'm with you. What you said earlier, I cannot see Kat.
I'm sorry. I was looking for the video, and you were just talking about him with dumb fouls. And this tweet, bro, by Hoops Mix only said in quotes, "Kat, we need you to stop fouling." And then it's a video of Kat going.
Right.
That's good shit.
Oh man, he did get hot last night, though. I'll give him that.
It says, "Kat, please do something," and then it's him getting choked out by Ben.
How do you get choked out by Ben Simmons?
That is bad, bro. That's bad. But anyway, that'll finally wrap up this Wednesday edition of the Phaithful Phanatics Show. If you are watching on Twitter, do us a favor, make sure to head on over to the YouTube channel specifically and hit that subscribe button. It's the best spot to get your comments pulled up with us, because we still cannot see your comments from Twitter. Thank you, StreamYard. For myself, for Scotty, have a great rest of your day.